Ever wondered what it's like to be born as a chicken? Well, buckle up, because it's like being cast in a never-ending season of The Twilight Zone. Except you're the star, and there are no plot twists, just feathers and a constant, gut-wrenching feeling that something is always about to go wrong. Seriously, imagine this. The moment you hatch, it's like you're dropped into a world where danger lurks behind every corner. There's no time for naps, no hey, let's relax under a tree. Instead, it's like living in a constant state of, is that a hawk I hear? Mixed with oh no, is that the farmer planning a barbecue? The worst part, chickens don't even know who the bad guys are. Is it the giant humans looming over them, reaching out with giant hands that seem like they could either give a pet or make them dinner? Or is it that suspicious rustling in the bushes? Is that a squirrel? Or is it the end of days? Every single thing that moves or makes noise is a potential villain in their eyes. And that constant paranoia? It's real. Chickens live with a better safe than sorry mentality, and honestly, who could blame them? From their perspective, everything is either a potential threat or an existential crisis waiting to happen. So picture this. It's like you're the last contestant on a game show called Survival of the Fittest, but the twist is, you're the prey and no one told you the rules. The stakes are high, the tension is thick, and let's be honest, every chicken feels like they're on the verge of getting plucked, literally. Welcome to the paranoid world of chickens, where every sound is an alarm, every shadow is a potential predator, and every moment is filled with, is this it? Let's take a deep dive into why chickens live in a state of constant oh, where every leaf that falls feels like a disaster, and the world outside their coop might just be a death trap in disguise. Let's talk about the chicken's brain. Now, I don't want to make assumptions here, but I think we can all agree that chickens are not known for being intellectual giants. They've got tiny brains, and yet they somehow manage to keep their entire existence on high alert. It's like their default setting is a constant panic button. Imagine being so on edge that every single sound in your environment sends you into a full-blown panic attack. A rustle in the grass? Time to run for your life. A shadow overhead? Duck for cover. A leaf falls from a tree? Well, that's basically the start of World War III. Seriously, you could be sitting calmly, sipping your tea, and all of a sudden, bam, a chicken panics at the sound of a breeze. It's a tiny, fluttering bit of nature, but to a chicken, it's the harbinger of doom. And who can blame them? In the wild, a simple leaf could be a signal that a hawk is on the prowl, ready to swoop down and turn their day into dinner. Now, let's talk about humans. From the perspective of a chicken, we are giants. Huge, towering figures who seem to have nothing better to do than stare down at them with our giant eyes. And while you may think you're being friendly, all a chicken sees is a potentially dangerous predator who might either try to pet them or, turn them into a sandwich. Imagine you're a chicken, minding your own business, pecking at some delicious grains when bam, a gigantic hand comes swooping down from the heavens to grab you. The chicken's brain would literally explode. Is it a friendly gesture? Or is it about to be turned into a recipe for Sunday lunch? Who knows? From the chicken's perspective, every human interaction feels like a high-stakes game of, will I survive or will I become dinner? It's kind of like a giant version of the Hunger Games, but instead of fighting for survival, chickens are constantly trying to avoid being picked up, held, or, worst of all, plucked and roasted. And honestly, they'd rather keep that personal space bubble intact. Thank you very much. Imagine being a chicken and getting so freaked out by a human's hand that you're basically thinking, nope, I'm good. I'm just gonna stay in this corner, thanks. Now, if humans are a constant source of anxiety, imagine what it's like living in a world where literally everything could be trying to eat you. From hawks to foxes, to that creepy neighbor's cat who always lurks near the fence, chickens never know when they're safe. Every sound, every shift in the air is a potential threat. Imagine a chicken waking up in the morning, stretching its wings, or whatever chickens do, and suddenly looking around to check for threats. A few feet away, a crow is eyeing the chicken's breakfast. A hawk is circling overhead. And that pesky neighbor's cat is, once again, trying to figure out how to break into the coop. It's a stressful existence, to say the least. Every time a shadow crosses their path, the chicken's heart probably skips a beat, wondering if it's the last time they'll ever feel the warm sun on their feathers. The sky itself? It's a chicken's worst nightmare, because above them could be the literal end of the world in the form of a predator from the skies. If you think about it, it's like living under a constant cloud of doom, knowing that at any moment, a hawk might swoop down and scoop you up in its talons. No wonder chickens are so skittish. But it's not just about the outside world. Life in the chicken coop isn't any less stressful. Ever been in a crowded elevator with a bunch of people who can't stop squabbling over the last donut? That's basically what life in the coop is like for a chicken. It's cramped, noisy, and there's always one chicken who's just a little too territorial over their corner or their piece of grain. Every day is a struggle for dominance, as chickens argue over the best spots to perch or the tastiest morsels of food. It's like living in a pressure cooker where everyone is both the drama and the victim. If a chicken looks at another chicken the wrong way, a full-on squabble might break out over something as trivial as a grain of corn. Imagine trying to survive in a place where every interaction is a potential confrontation. It's like living in a constant episode of Real Housewives, but with more feathers and less glam. So here's the kicker. Chickens don't even get a break from their own brains. Imagine trying to relax when every single tiny movement around you triggers a spike in your adrenaline. For a chicken, there's no off switch for anxiety. It's like having 50 tabs open in their mind, all labeled danger, and none of them have a close button. Seriously, they can't even chill for a second. They might be standing perfectly still, pecking at some food, and all of a sudden something happens. Whether it's a breeze, a movement, or just a shadow, and bam, they're back on full alert. You see, chickens have a very strong survival instinct. Their minds are literally hardwired to constantly be in fight or flight mode. They don't have the luxury of zoning out while someone else handles things. Their brains are a 24/7 monitoring system, running on caffeine and panic. So while humans can kick back, watch Netflix, and relax on the couch, unless they're dealing with their own workplace anxieties, but that's another topic. Chickens? Not so much. They are always on edge, always ready to sprint at the first sign of danger. Let's break it down further. You're a chicken minding your own business when suddenly, without warning, a twig snaps. Is it the wind? Or is it an impending predator coming to make you its next meal? Every second of every day is like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when it does, whether it's a predator or not, you better believe that chicken's heart is racing. Now, imagine if you had to live like this. You couldn't even enjoy a meal in peace without the underlying fear that something could go wrong. You'd be tense all the time, and it wouldn't be long before you snapped yourself. It's like being stuck in a permanent state of fight or flight with no hope for relaxation. Sounds exhausting, right? Now let's take a peek inside the chicken's head. If we could somehow tap into the thought process of these little feathered creatures, what would we find? Probably a bunch of frantic, paranoid thoughts bouncing around in there like a hamster in a wheel. Did I hear something? Was that a footstep? Did the farmer just glance at me? Am I next? Their little minds are racing with constant what-ifs. What if that sound means a hawk is coming for me? What if the human is planning something sinister? Honestly, the chicken probably has an entire conspiracy theory going on in its head. I'm not just a pet, I know what's up. They're plotting something. I'm next in line for the casserole. The thing is, though, chickens aren't exactly wrong to be paranoid. Sure, they might not have the most advanced logic skills, but they've learned that every rustle in the bushes, every shifting shadow, is a potential threat. What might seem like an overreaction to us is actually an instinctual survival response. If you think about it, they're actually playing it smart, better safe than sorry, right? And let's be honest, wouldn't you be a little paranoid too if you lived in a world where everything and everyone could be a potential threat? It's like living in a horror movie, but without the dramatic music and plot twists. Just nonstop, low-budget anxiety. So, let's wrap this up and reflect on the chaotic, paranoid life of a chicken. From the moment they hatch, their existence is one long, drawn-out survival game. They're constantly on high alert, dodging predators, navigating the strange and giant world of humans, and trying to avoid the chaos of their own crowded coops. It's a life filled with stress, fear, and the overwhelming sense that something, anything, could go wrong at any moment. And yet, through it all, chickens somehow manage to survive. Maybe it's their perpetual panic that keeps them alive, always ready to dart away at the slightest hint of danger. Or maybe it's just their ability to stay hyper-aware, even when the world feels like it's closing in on them. Either way, they live life with one goal in mind: survival. But here's the real kicker. As much as chickens may seem paranoid, as much as they live in fear, they're still getting by. And honestly, maybe there's something to be learned from their constant vigilance. Maybe we could all stand to pay a little more attention to the things around us, to be a little more aware of potential threats, but without losing our minds, of course. So, next time you're near a chicken, remember, They're not afraid of you. They're afraid of absolutely everything else. You just happen to be part of the paranoia show. But hey, at least they're always ready for an adventure, even if that adventure is an accidental sprint for survival. And who knows? Maybe we could all use a little bit of that chicken instinct, just minus the constant panic. If you've learned anything from today, it's that chickens live life in a constant state of readiness. They may seem a little paranoid, but in a world full of predators, constant threats, and overbearing humans, who can blame them? So, next time you see a chicken, take a moment to think about the world from their perspective, where every noise is a potential disaster, and every shadow could be a predator just waiting to pounce. After all, we might think it's crazy, but maybe we should consider taking a little more vigilance with us into our own lives. Without the stress, of course.